Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Public Works Committee Solid Waste and Recycling Agenda meeting. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the approval of the minutes of the previous committee meeting. Claudia Bramer on the motion to approve. Second, Andrea. How are you, Andrea? Andrea Hogan on the second. Ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the minutes of the previous committee meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And with this, I'll actually turn the meeting over to Highway Superintendent Kevin Hajos. What I would recommend on the comment is we'll hold that public comment first, and then after the public comment, then we can go to the committee if that's satisfactory with everyone. We'll let the people speak first. So, Kevin, with that, I think I'll just turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Ron said, my name is Kevin Hajos. I'm the Superintendent of Public Works for Warren County, and solid waste falls underneath my department. I also have in my office with me Todd Beatno, who works in my office as well, and he's the recycling coordinator. If you give me a moment, because I'm going to make sure that this works, I'm going to share my screen and present, do a PowerPoint presentation on the local solid waste, the draft local solid waste management plan. So give me 1 second. Does everybody see that PowerPoint presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Can you put it in presentation mode?
Yes, I will. Give me a minute, Claudia. I don't do that this often.
I think you need to go to slideshow.
I know. I'm just trying to figure out where it says slideshow.
At the very, keep going. Oh, one more.
Oh, there we go. From beginning. Are we good?
Yes, that looks nice. Thank you.
All right. So again, I'm going to present the overview of this meeting is to present the draft local solid waste management plan within Warren County. The agenda basically is going to give you a background and regulatory requirements based on DEC. It's going to give you a summary of the draft local solid waste management plan, what our next steps are, and then I'm going to kind of do an overview of the public comments that we have already received and discuss through end of day today. We'll still take more public comments. First thing I'll get into is in accordance with DEC, the regulatory requirements are that municipalities are required to develop a local solid waste management plan for a 10-year planning period. Ours was initially developed combined with Washington County in 1993. That had run through, I believe, to 2010 when the county started drafting their next local solid waste management plan, which was to go from 2011 through 2030. We did draft that plan. We had submitted that plan back to DEC in 2011. We received comments from DEC in 2018. Those comments we received was to revise our current draft solid waste management plan. And at that point, we went back to our consultant, RS Lynch, to address the comments that DEC had provided us. The current draft local solid waste management plan was prepared in accordance with 6 NYCR, which is code and regulations, under part 1 or 362, which is 366-2, which is solid waste. The draft local solid waste management plan as it currently stands provides our current solid waste programs provided to residents and businesses in Warren County, the waste handle facilities that are operating within Warren County, waste types and other sources, including biosolids, strategies and schedules for enhancing reduction, reuse, and recycling within the county. And then as part of the requirements for DEC, we're required to do a public notification, which we did back in June 23rd. And provide a soliciting public comment, and then to hold one public meeting. And that's what today's meeting is. The contents of this local solid waste management plan are kind of the introduction and planning unit description, which is the basically gives an overview of what we're doing now. And it's based on our population in the county, the facilities that we have. We'll go through solid waste generation and disposal. Next, we'll hit on solid waste generation and disposal with existing programs in our facilities. Reducing, which would be kind of the next steps, reducing solid waste generation, reusing materials in the planning unit, recycling solid waste in the planning unit, disposing of residual solid waste, and then summary and recommendations and the schedule to implement our plan and the schedule. This is the first thing that I want to kind of point out to everyone is this is our current kind of municipal solid waste collection disposal throughout the county. Each one of the towns have a transfer facility, and you'll see the types of waste that those transfer facilities accept. Just a little note in here that the city of Glens Falls does not have necessarily a transfer facility. Most people who take their municipal solid waste to a transfer facility from Glens Falls take it to the Luzerne Road facility, which the town of Queensbury leases from the city of Glens Falls, and they're able to take their material there. Two of our towns have landfills, C&D landfills. One of them is the town of Lake George, and the other one is the town of Thurman. Neither one of them have a permitted limit on their C&D landfills, but they don't take in a significant amount of material to those landfills either. I believe in the town of Lake George, the village individuals, since it's on village property, I believe, can also take their C&D to that town landfill, C&D landfill. I kind of give you an overall of the tons. These are numbers that range between 2018 and 2019 from the material we received from the towns of what they take in municipal solid waste, C&D, and recycles in tons. That's the first column. The second column gives you an idea of what's being recycled at each one of the facilities and the percentage that they're doing. If you kind of average the percentage across the board, it probably averages about 20, maybe 21%, maybe of recyclables being taken in each one of the facilities. Kind of the next steps for us is kind of reducing the solid waste generation that happens within Warren County. There's different ways of us doing that. I will get into what some other programs or committees have suggested that we do, but some of the things that we've talked about within our local solid waste management plan is establishing green procurement and sustainability programs. Back in 2004, Governor Patterson passed this plan, which would be to move towards procuring more recyclable paper, using less paper within state offices, procuring with contracts who would provide us any type of green procurement or green programs. Some of the things that we're proposing as part of this plan is to kind of education and outreach, and to include this green procurement and sustainability program. That would include us, I guess the first and foremost is creating a website that informs residents, local businesses, and institutions about types of waste reduction that can happen. Some say that that's not enough. Websites are not enough. I propose, and this was not part of what R&S Lynch had put in the plans, but this is some of the comments that I have added into the plan as well, is not just using websites, but using social media. That seems to be the new norm that people are doing. And I think that it goes a long way. I think the county itself, say Facebook page, started off as being zilch, and I think Don Lehman can vouch to say that we're up over 8,600 kind of people that are attached to that now. So it does get out, it does get kind of wide circulation using that social media. Some of the other things that we propose doing is distributing brochures through municipal buildings, through transfer stations, recycling centers. that would provide, basically that type of information, simple, cost-effective ways to reduce a waste. We would also propose putting a plan together to distribute those same type of brochures to local businesses and institutions, such as, any of our large waste generators in here, whether it be a school, whether it be the hospital, things that they could do to do waste reduction. Furthermore, we're talking about, in the plan over the next, say 10 years or 8 years, whatever it may be, is coming up with, seminars that we can present to residents, businesses. One of the things I hope to do is there's a zero waste initiative that will be part, it would supply us a lot of comments, and I would seek, some assistance from them with holding some of these seminars. They're very well educated, and they have a lot of great ideas. One of the other things that we could talk about doing, reducing solid waste, is a pay-as-you-throw variable rate pricing. I'm not sure how to share this other than that if you look at, or if you write down this link that I provided, it'll give you some very good explanations. But pay-as-you-throw is basically a program, and you could start this off at a smaller scale for residences first, and maybe move it to a bigger scale for businesses as well. The bottom line is, me as a resident of Warren County, I have the ability that I pay. I think most transfer stations are like this. You pay by the bag. I take a 35-pound bag to, and I don't quote me on this. I take a 35-pound bag to the town of Queensbury. It might cost me $4 to dispose of that 35-pound bag. With this pay-as-you-throw, if I take that 35-pound bag there, or 35-gallon bag there, and it's weighed, then you pay on a price of how much that bag weighs. If I'm throwing food scraps in there, if I'm throwing in things that can be recycled, I'm going to be charged for that. So that may make me stop and think, wait a minute, maybe I'll start composting, backyard composting. Maybe I'll make sure that I'm recycling everything I can so that it's not in that solid waste stream, and that can, be a less of a charge to me. Other areas have put this in place. Ulster County has put this in place, and it works. They see a reduction in the amount of solid waste coming into the land or into the transfer stations, which again is a mixture of food, the municipal or just regular solid waste, as well as recyclables. So that's something else that we're proposing as part of this, is working with the towns and possibly establishing a pay-as-you-throw variable rate pricing. Again, if you write down that website that I've had on there, there's a lot of excellent information in there that can tell you, what the EPA, the information that they have developed about it, and it talks about a lot of their success programs that have worked. One of the other things that talked about is reusing material. The first one would be develop reuse centers at the local transfer stations. This to me is, kind of easy pickings to be done. Now, the towns may or may not tell me something different, but I will tell you right now that the town of Chester does this, as well as the town of Bolton. Two different scales. The town of Chester, I believe, has a reused facility where somebody mans it, and they bring in this. People are allowed to bring in this material, whether it be clothing, whether it be dressers, whether it be kids' board games, whether it be sporting equipment. And then people are allowed to come in there and basically take it. There's kind of two parts to this. Some people may do that because they don't want to pay the cost of disposing of something. That's understandable. But the fact that these materials can be used by others is a plus. I mean, somebody may need a dresser for an apartment. Somebody may need, clothing. It's a great place to kind of pick that material up. The town of Bolton is a little bit different. The town of Bolton has what they call a shed. It's kind of their reuse shed. Right as you pull into the gate of the town of Bolton, they have a shed that people can put that same type of material that people could reuse in that shed. They don't necessarily need somebody's. The attendant shed is right next to it, so they can see what people bring in. Again, People may bring in material in there because they don't want to throw it away. They don't want to maybe pay for the cost of throwing it away, but it's a good opportunity for any transfer station that, and it's takes up such a small footprint, that they could incorporate these reuse, sheds, centers there. And this would take some of that material out of the waste stream. Do I have a number to give you exactly what that is? I don't. But the reuse is a easy opportunity to pull some of that solid waste out of the stream. And again, perfect thing for people to use. I mean, just a side note, I was actually up to the town of Bolton transfer station, and they had I'm a golfer, and they had a driving iron in there. And I said, I don't have a driving iron. I have drivers, but I don't have a driving iron. I haven't seen one in many years. So I actually took the driving iron and I used it the last time I went out for a golf. So again, I think the reuse centers are a good thing, and I think it's an easy thing for transfer stations to incorporate, whether they create a lean-to, whether they create a shed like the town of Bolton has. I think it's minor. If the material doesn't go, then, and I'll let Ron correct me later, but I think if the material doesn't go, it doesn't get used, they give it a kind of a 2-week period or maybe a month period. If whatever the item may be is still sitting there, they do put it into the C&D waste, or into the municipal solid waste to get rid of. One of the other things they talk about reusing material is food banks. Large food generators, restaurants, grocery stores, colleges, they could donate any of their food to local food pantries. I think the easiest way for us to do that is that kind of the county, again, through a website or social media platforms, is provide a way for food generators to communicate with local food pantries to pick up some of that food so that can be used at those food pantries. So again, another opportunity. There is a law coming out. I don't know if I'll quote the law correctly. It's a food waste scrap law, and I'm probably not saying it exactly the way it should be said. But as of January 1st, 2022, the law goes into a place that any food generators, large food generators, such as restaurants, grocery stores, I don't know if it pulls out colleges or other places. I don't think it do. I think they're excluded from it. But specifically restaurants and grocery stores, that if there is they should try to, number one, send that food to a food pantry. Maybe they might not sell it on the shelf anymore, but it's food that can still be used, say, for a food pantry or something like that. So that'd be first and foremost. The second part of that law is going to read, if there is a composting facility within 25 miles of their place of business, they will be required to take their food scraps to this composting facility. Again, one being within 25 miles. Right now, there is not currently one within Warren County. I have been part of conversations with the Zero Waste Planning Committee with Ulster County, who does have a composting facility. And there's some good examples of creating kind of a composting facility within Warren County. I will start off by saying is if we go that route, which I think is not a bad idea, we'd have to start at a smaller scale, because I don't think right now, number one, we have a facility to do this, at least not one that we've come up with that will significantly work for a composting facility. So I think a pilot project may be something that we can look at and probably incorporate maybe in the next couple of years. I know there's some funding out there with DPC to be able to do that. But it might be something that we look at moving forward in the future. But I don't think we can have something on the scale of what Ulster County has. There's a capital cost associated with that. And that's, I don't think with everything that's gone on with the pandemic, we have that money. I know there's been talk of, well, it can be bonded just like the waste to energy plant was. And again, that's not a decision I would make. And I'm not sure how that would be a board decision to make through Warren County as far as whether or not we would do that. But again, I think it's a good idea, but I think we start at a small scale first, and then we move, possibly if we think it's a worthwhile, adventure, then we continue along that maybe at a larger scale. Next, again, I just kind of touched on this a little bit, recycling solid waste in the planning unit. Again, I just talked about the composting. The next one is household hazardous waste. As most of you know, we do household hazardous waste within the county every year. We try to take a lot of those items that people have sitting in their garages for years on end, such as antifreeze, fluorescent light bulbs, old paint. They don't have a way to dispose of that right now. We definitely don't want them disposing that on the side of the road somewhere. So I want to say we're probably in our 4th or 5th year now with the household hazardous waste collection. We typically run 2 events every other year, and then the opposite year we run a single event. We've taken in not a significant amount of household hazardous waste, but we have taken in enough to take some out of the solid waste stream. I think this year we were holding off having our household hazardous waste because we were waiting to see with the pandemic, would it be feasible for us to have it? I've made this decision myself at this point that I believe it is feasible to have it because the bottom line is a drive-in. No one needs to get out of their cars. The company that we use to collect the material, they remove everything from individual cars. So we could have the protection in place, mask wearing, 6 feet of separation. So we have them scheduled in right now for October, I believe 31st, right on Halloween. And I believe the event will be held in the town of Queensbury. Next year, we will go back to having 2 events again. I think with everybody being home on the pandemic this year, I think that solid waste collection in Queensbury this year will be significant. I know I have, and I'm sure many of you have done a lot of cleaning of our houses and have a lot of material we probably want to get rid of. Institutional recycling. Here at the county center, we have a bunch of recycling containers that do get picked up. I don't see a lot of it. I see some here and there at schools, but I think that's something that we talk about that we can probably do on a larger scale. And what that would involve is, us or, a waste management company, I'm not sure who, providing us containers where we can do more collection of recycled material, more bottle collection, more paper collection, more cardboard collection at a larger scale. One of the things that I know most of you have probably read, in the 1991 local law that was passed, there's an enforcement in there to make sure that people are basically recycling, separating materials and recycling them. I will be the first one to tell you, in all the years that I've been here at DPW, which is since 2008, I've never seen that enforcement handed out. I believe it's time to do it? I do. There was a note within those local laws, that local law, that said basically the enforcement was the superintendent of public works, but then that also was placed from him onto the local municipalities because of them having transfer stations that they need to enforce this as well. Now, I would tell you, I don't know that anybody does it. I think I can probably ask every single one of the towns, and some of them didn't even know that there was an enforcement. So I think that's one of the things going forward. I think we have to start to do, and that enforcement just doesn't go for households; it goes for businesses and institutions throughout Warren County. So, we have to make sure that, let's say Queensbury School District or Bolton School District, that they're recycling. I would think most of them are. I think most of them have containers, but I think we can kind of up the ante on that and maybe put more containers in some of our parks, perfect example is the Charles R. Wood Park. I don't believe we have a lot of right recycling containers down there. That may be something we could do. We could do more of that maybe along the bike path. So I think there's, for institutional recycling, bottom line is it starts with us. But I think we're doing a good job with it, but we got to start pushing it off onto others. And we have to start enforcing. That's the bottom line. Commercial recycling, again, that just goes to more of the businesses, and kind of, again, forcing them to start doing a little more than recycling on their part. The whole gist of this enforcing, though, is staffing. I will be the first to tell you I don't have a lot of staffing in my department that can run around and check to make sure that businesses and institutions are doing their recycling. Furthermore, that law says that I should be checking upon all the haulers and making sure that they are recycling and not taking material from our houses that we may put them in separate bins and then combining it all into the municipal solid waste or into the solid waste stream. I should be enforcing that with them as well, and I just don't have the staff to be able to do that. So again, probably moving forward, the talks will come down to creating another position or more staff that we're able to go out there and start enforcing this a little bit more. That goes to my next line is the recycling enforcement. There has been talk about doing some hauler licensing. Ulster County, through the Department of Health, requires, Ulster County is a little bit different. I will kind of tell you that they don't have individual transfer stations. They have two that are run by Ulster County, and they take all the solid waste throughout Ulster County, and it comes to these two, what I will call transfer stations. Ulster County requires every hauler within Ulster County to do a permit application at a cost of $200 a year. And then, $200 to do the application, and then it's $100 renewable every year. That helps pay for their enforcement down there. If somebody's hauling material because they don't want to pay the Ulster County price outside the county, they have an enforcement that goes out and checks on all these haulers. They do spot checks on them continuously, and they fine them. And I think some of their fines start somewhere in the $5,000 range. They say, for the most part, that since the years that they've had it in place, it has gotten better. But as most of you are aware, I was giving somebody this example yesterday. I believe I have, just in my neighborhood alone in Queensbury, 10 different haulers in my neighborhood. Todd and I were talking about it this morning. There's probably 25 within the county. I mean, there's small mom and pop operations to ones that are very, very large. But if we're going to be fair and create some type of hauler, I don't know necessarily say licensing, but permitting, and they have to do that permit application to get into Warren County, and then to do the annual renewal every year. It's everybody should be treated the same. I think what will end up happening is that hauler, kind of fee is going to be just passed on to any of us as residents. Waste collection franchising. That's, I guess, to some degree what Ulster County has done. I want to say Washington County to some degree has done something similar. Washington County used to have 5 transfer stations. They were being run by a private company with a lease option to purchase. I believe it was 3 years ago the company did purchase. That doesn't necessarily stop haulers from taking the material wherever they want. Even Washington, or the private company that collects the material at each one of these transfer stations, they can take it to the waste to energy plant in Hudson Falls. They can take it to Hiram Hollow. They can take it where it's probably the cheapest cost for them. kind of the collection franchising is, it would, similar to Ulster County, hey, let's keep it in one spot, and then we only have one or two haulers, maybe three or four haulers picking up material in Warren County. That may put some haulers out of business. That may, what you're going to do is you're going to put it out to bid as an RFP and see who would submit bids to haul that franchise, around Warren County. In my neighborhood, and I don't think there's enough information on this yet. It's just something that, possibly in the future could be proposed. Does somebody just do my neighborhood alone? Does somebody do the town of Queensbury and somebody else do the town of Horicon, taking that material from those transfer stations and then the hauling of that, besides collecting it, and then we would collect it at the transfer station, them hauling it somewhere, where would we ask them to haul it to? So there's still some information that's needed on that, but again, it's something that I think as part of our plan can be looked at. I'm not going to necessarily, and that's basically what we stated in the plan, is that we're not saying here we're doing it. We're just going to say, hey, we're going to look at that over the next planning period to see if that's something that we can do. The last but not least is municipal collection. There's a cost associated with municipal collection. Municipals could enforce their recycling a little bit easier that way, but now all your municipalities are going to go out buying their own trucks, and that's something that I don't think that any of them have budgeted for. I think right now the town of Lake Luzerne is the only municipality that still collects municipal solid waste at this time. And then, that's probably the least favored out of all these, especially with the costs that are associated with it. The last thing is kind of creating markets for recyclable material. Single stream recycling right now is any recycling market right now is very volatile. Single stream recycling, I can tell you, is not necessarily the best scenario for putting your recyclables out there on the market. The fact is most places don't want to. I'll give an example. One of the things that we do here at Warren County is corrugated cardboard. Many times towns, and I'm not calling out any one particular town, but many times towns allow in their cardboard containers that they have pizza boxes, your 12-pack of beer boxes, anything that has print on it. It's still cardboard, but it has print on it. Recyclers consider that contaminated. That's not material that they want to take. I think I had one of the companies that takes some of the material from the towns for us that we put out the bid for, came back to me earlier this year and said there was a certain town there was too much of that contaminated waste within the cardboard, and they were unwilling to accept it anymore because it's costing them a fortune to recycle it or separate it at their facilities. So, the better option for us for marketing that recyclable material would be to, first of all, separate. It can't be contaminated. It's got to be kind of dual stream recycling. We have to have the material that's acceptable. That's the best bang for our buck, I guess I want to say. One of the things for us to create that recyclable would then for us to go back into the recycling business, which would in turn mean us creating a MRF facility like we used to have. I will tell you that MRF facility in the past cost the county a significant amount of money. One, because originally in 1991, when we started this process, the DEC promoted closure of all landfills. And this was one way that, they could have the transfer stations, but we could take a lot of that recycled material. But when they opened up the landfills back up, and they didn't necessarily push that closure of all those, that hurt that MRF facility significantly, because then people were taking it to transfer stations, and transfer stations were taking it to recyclers who were who would give us kind of more money to it. So it affected the market that we had as far as recycling that material. I can tell you probably after the first couple of years of that facility being in place, we were always operating in the red. I'm not saying, again, moving forward, this could work. But again, the recycling market is very volatile. It's up and down. And right now, I think most of you have probably read, China is accepting very little material, and they were one of the biggest ones that were accepting the recyclables from the United States. It is a potential that can be done. But again, that's probably a little farther out. And again, there's a capital investment up front for us to do that. Again, needing a MRF facility. And again, there's a cost with that. We just sold our MRF facility last year, which is $450,000. For us to build us a new one, it would probably be twice that cost. And I don't know necessarily we have the land in the county to buy right now. We'd have to look for county. We don't have the land ourselves in our inventory. I think that we could build one. Next would be the last but not least thing we need to talk about as far as this is disposal of residual solid waste. If we could put all these other plans in place, we would reduce the solid waste going into the waste energy treatment in Hudson Falls, or some of this other material is hauled to other landfills, such as Clinton County or Fulton County. Those. If we could pull those reuse out, if we could pull that recycle out, it would reduce the amount of solid waste going into the Hudson Falls facility. If and when, because we know maybe sooner or later it's going to happen, that the Hudson Falls facility is going to shut down. May shut down by Wheelabrator, may shut down because it's too costly for them to operate anymore. There are other facilities and landfills that will take municipal solid waste, and I've kind of listed them there. Clinton County, Fulton County, County Landfill, County Waste Transfer, and Hiram Hollow. The fact is, right now, taking our waste to Hudson Falls is probably the cheapest for our tipping fees. I'm not saying that some of the towns don't take it to some of the other places, they may, but right now the Hudson Falls is the cheapest. But as that goes down, we kind of provided some numbers within the report that talk about, whether we were to take it to any one of those facilities. And then it also talks about the next option of how would we take it? Would you put out an RFP maybe for, again, one hauler to remove all this material and take it to one of those landfills or transfer stations? Would we use one or two of the transfer stations or landfills to take our material to? Would we take it ourselves? And we listed different trucking options, whether it's a packer truck, which is like your municipal, like the town of Lake Luzerne has, that compacts that material for you. Basically, your trucks that you see in everyone's neighborhood picking up the garbage. Would you use containers, roll-off containers, similar to what the county has provided each one of the towns? Or, last but not least, would you use tractor trailers to load up tractor trailers and haul into one of these? So, again, within the report, there are numbers associated with each one of these. I think the numbers range anywhere from $50 a tipping fee to upwards of $70 for tipping fees. But then when you add in the different options of trucking costs, I want to say somewhere in the $170 a ton range is where those numbers fall to haul it to any one of those places. It's costly. It's going to become more costly. And I don't think, I think the less we have to take, which is, again, going back into reuse, recycle, getting that out of the waste stream, the better off that we'll be. So if we have to go to still hauling to one of those facilities, maybe as opposed to taking, and I'm just throwing a number out there, 100 trips a year, maybe we only take 50 trips a year or something like that. I think the food waste alone, if we get into eventually this full-scale composting, food waste alone will take almost 35% out of the stream, the solid waste stream. That's significant. And that's something that we should all, be thinking about moving forward. So, summary and recommendations that we have moving forward is the first and foremost that the plan talks about is improving solid waste and recycling program data collection in the county. We kind of collect information, maybe on a yearly basis, maybe every couple of years. We should be collecting it every year. I think moving forward, Todd and I have talked about coming up with a simple, whether it be a spreadsheet, whether it be a program that we can submit to each one of the towns, we can possibly work with IT on that, to input that whether it be every month or maybe on a quarterly basis, so that we would receive that data collection every month. And then we could see truly what's being collected in recyclables, what's being possibly, if they have these reuse centers, reused and taken out of the waste stream, and then what we're taking in for solid waste. It hasn't been pushed in the past for that data collection. As I said, it's kind of been hit or miss here and there. I know Todd, continually reaches out to towns to assist them, help them if they need it. Furthermore, all the towns need to be have applications with DEC as transfer stations, and they need to kind of have these numbers as well at their end of the year. So I think from our standpoint, one of the things that we're looking at is just creating some simplistic program data sheet or something that we can hand out to all of the municipalities for them to fill in on either, as I said, either on a monthly or quarterly basis. The next step would be to, and this goes to talking about permitting haulers, to have them provide us that same data collection as what they're taking in. Some of the information that the towns get is from some of those haulers and what they remove from them, because of course they get billed to remove that, so there's a tonnage involved. We should put more emphasis on grabbing that data collection for them to make sure that number one, maybe we're not taking in municipal solid waste, from say somewhere else. Maybe we don't know if their numbers are true, but I think if we hold their feet to the fire, maybe with an application process, a registration process, and then eventually having some type of enforcement to them, I think we'll get better numbers that would provide us a better look forward as to, is it feasible for us to start reducing the waste within Warren County. So that's the kind of the recycling, the data collection the waste and data collection that we're looking at. The other one is the reduced waste generation. That again goes back to the educational component, the web, a specific website laying out the ways to reduce solid waste within Warren County. Same thing goes for the reuse and the recycle. It all comes down to kind of a marketing plan. Now I know others will say we need to do a full-blown marketing report or marketing approach. Again, there's a cost associated with that. I think kind of our ID department creating a website, using our communication director and using Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, we could get out a lot of the information that way, and it would educate whether it's institutions, businesses, or your local residents, as well as having some of those seminars. I think that would go a long way in reduce, reuse, and recycle within the planning unit. As far as disposal of residuals in the planning unit, we're always going to have them. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of them all. We want to reduce the amount that we take in, but you're still going to have to have it, and that'll be a discussion moving forward. Is Right now, we're still using, for the most part, the Hudson Falls Waste to Energy facility. But it may come someday soon that we have to look to dispose and possibly use another transfer station. Now, the ones that I've listed above are fairly close. I can tell you Ulster County takes all of their material. And don't get me wrong, they have a good rate given to them by Seneca Meadows, but all of their material goes out to Seneca Meadows. With their reduction that they have done in solid waste, they've really cut down in their trucking costs, which leads to the greenhouse gas emissions. They've reduced it significantly. They were at, let's say 300 trips a year. Maybe they've cut that in half, and they hope in the future to cut that even further. Implementation plan and schedule for the plan. So in 2018, we received the comments from DEC. This draft local solid waste management plan at this time is going to address those comments that they were giving. I will let you know that Todd and I have both reviewed the plan that came back from RS Lynch. We have our own comments mine's basically marked up in red in some spots that I just want RS Lynch to fix or correct or add. So they have some corrections to do from us, but furthering that, we, as I said earlier in the beginning of the meeting, provided this draft local solid waste management plan on June 23rd to the public for a 45-day comment period. We actually, all said and done, will have a 59-day, I believe, comment period. We are to hold, this year, 2019-2020, a public meeting, which we're having today, to present the draft plan. Once this meeting is over and I've received by end of day today all the rest of the either verbal or written comments, we will provide a responsive summary to those comments, which I will put on the website. And then that, along with the draft local solid waste management plan, will be submitted to New York State DEC for approval. Once the approval is received from DEC, the county would adopt by resolution the local solid waste management plan. Now, I will tell you, it may or may not be that simple. We could submit this draft plan with a responsive summary to DEC, and DEC could come back with more comments. If the plan has significantly changed with anything that we've added since they did their comments in 2018, they could come back and say, we want you to go back out for another public comment period. Going forward through the rest of the plan, I kind of went through all these as I was talking about the plan. We would continue to offer the household hazardous waste collection programs. We would continue submittals of annual reports to DEC. We would encourage all the municipalities within the planning unit to use some of those green procurements. We would have them assist us in educating, whether they had the brochure that transfer stations, or whether we go to each town and do seminars. Then, anything that we could do to educate and provide outreach to tell people how they can reduce their solid waste. We would definitely, as part of the 1991 law, start an enforcement of recycling within Warren County. I know it'll be an uphill climb, but I think it's achievable. Again, the only thing I kind of add to that is I'm eventually going to need the staffing to be able to do that. One of the other things I looked at, again, I talked about encouraging the pay-as-you-throw price. We could kind of work through the details and see. I'm not sure what it would take on the town level, because I believe they all have fee schedules for throwing solid waste away today. And I believe they probably establish all those fee schedules for the $4 for a 35-gallon bag or whatever it may be through resolution. So we'd have to kind of work through the details and provide here's how you would do it. But then again, that would be a scale purchase that each one of these facilities would need. And I know not all the facilities have scales. There's only a couple of them that do have scales at their facilities. Again, for the institutions and such, we could provide public space recycling receptacles. Again, going to the Charles R. Wood Park, going to, I think every year we have the Balloon Fest. I pretty much think that we have them there, but we could look at any events like that. Any of the events that are held at the park, we could require the vendors to place some type of recyclable containers there that people could use as they're attending the event. The last is establishing the reporting protocols, which is, again, us kind of assisting the towns and helping them with what they submit as far as data, and maybe just us doing, again, helping them with programs or spreadsheets to help them provide better data collection. And again, possibly, putting that onus on the haulers through a permitting system. The next steps for us, and I just talked about this a little bit, is 45-day comment period. Again, it'll be a total of about a 59-day public comment period through end of day today. We will provide a responsive summary to all the comments that we have received. We may receive more at the end of this meeting. We will update the draft to include that responsive summary for New York State DEC's review. We will hopefully receive approval of the draft local solid waste management plan from DEC. If not, again, they may say it's changed too much, and we'd like you to go out for another 45-day comment period. Maybe it won't. I'm not sure. Then Warren County, by resolution, would adopt it, and then Warren County would implement the plan and start the reporting to DEC as required. Now, that's one thing I wanted to add on to that is we are required every 2 years a biennial update to the report. So some of the comments that we received that I'm going to get into next, I think a lot of the comments, the initiatives that people have put forward, I think they're great. Some of them I think are very ambitious, but I'm not discouraging whether or not we're including some or all or none of them in the report. I guess what I'm saying is we do update the report every couple years. If we start talking, and I think Supervisor Driscoll had pointed this out yesterday, that in his email, that I would definitely want to work with the Zero Waste Initiative on some of the programs that they're proposing. They don't necessarily have to be part of this plan, but I think if we can take pieces of that throughout the years of this plan, and then by the next time that we redo this plan in 2028, we may be there with all those initiatives. But again, I just want to kind of point that out, that we do update the plan every 2 years, and then in 2028, we will be redoing this plan again, and hoping at that point, a lot of the stuff that is talked about may come to fruition at that point. So again, that's where we are with that. I will kind of get into some of the comments. I'm going to kind of go through real quick the majority of the comments that we have seen. I don't want to, and I'm not going to hit every one, because we are going to provide a responsive summary as part of this plan, which I will make sure that it's put on the website for everyone to see. But we haven't gotten to that responsive summary yet, because we're still taking comments through today. So I guess the first one I'll hit on is the Zero Waste Initiative is a group that is proposing, and it's I can tell you it's a big swing around the country to go to zero waste. I think it's ambitious. I will tell you that the mayor of New York City a couple years ago decided to say, I'm jumping on board. I think these initiatives are phenomenal, and we're going to do a 50% reduction by 2030. I just read an article yesterday that says they will not even come close to reaching that reduction. And the main reason behind it is the programs and the costs that are associated with it. So I'm not saying that it can't be reached. But I think, and this is, based on the recommendations from the Zero Waste Committee, they want a 50% reduction in waste and diversion by 2025 in 5 years' time. I don't see that. Do we have a small amount shown in the plans? We do. We have anywhere from some 0 to upwards of 4% per year. I hope, again, talking about that biennial report every 2 years, that if we start to slowly incorporate some of these programs, adopt some of these programs, whether it's the reuse, enforcement of recycling, we will see a higher percentage of reduction and diversion. But again, to do 50% without having all the capital investment that is needed in place right now, I just don't see that. I mean, most of you know in the county, I give you a perfect example. Last year, we built the new OES facility. I mean, it took over a year to get everything in place. I'm just completing the facility now. With some of these improvements and some of the things that we would have to do that they're proposing, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's going to require an upfront capital investment. And I know that they'll say that we can do a funding mechanism through a hauler surcharge. You can, but that's not a decision that I can make. That's a decision at the board level to make that. So with that being said, I'll get into some of their initiatives. But again, I think, just to preface it, there is a cost associated with doing a lot of this. So the main goal for zero waste is, again, the 50% reduction in diversion. The main thing that they're looking for is Warren County to have a zero waste kind of management coordinator position. I don't have that now. I'm willing to talk about that maybe within the next couple of years, or maybe within the next year, especially if we start moving towards the enforcement, to have somebody in place to do that. But right now, I currently don't have that. I talked about a county-wide hauler permit system, similar to what Ulster County. I think that could work. And I discussed that one earlier. The $10 per ton surcharge for haulers. Again, I looked at their numbers. They're talking about a $550,000 annual revenue that would be generated from that. I kind of did the numbers on what they had in their report or their information, their white paper. I don't see it as high as $550,000. I see it in the $315,000 to $375,000 range, somewhere in there. But again, no difference. They think the cost to most residences will be $4 or $5 annually. I can't predict that number. It could be that. In other areas, it's been a little bit higher, but it could come in at that number. The other thing is, transfer stations, including sorting, repair, and reuse centers. That again, I discussed about. I think it's a small piece that we can pick off. There would not be a lot of cost to it. Is to start kind of creating more of that reuse shed, similar to the town of Bolton, or if it's viable, create something like the town of Chester has. But I believe, and I can let Supervisor Leggett talk to it in a moment, I believe they pay for someone to run or, watch that facility. Whereas, something separate from, say, the transfer station. Whereas the town of Bolton, the attendants there watch it. It's right up front. I think most of the transfer stations could do that same thing. It's a minimal cost. You could put stuff in some type of building facility, and then, people can come and take it. That's low-hanging fruit, I think, that can be picked. A county-owned MRF. Again, I went back to that. I don't have a building for that. There's a huge capital investment upfront needed for us to get back into the material recovery facility, having a material recovery facility done. So it can be, we can talk about it. I know they'll offer up bonding. Again, that's not a decision I can make. That would be a decision at the board level. Talking about a nonprofit repair reuse center with some job training. That's kind of the private sector. And that's no different than composting. Can we find a private sector to do either one of those? We probably could. And as I said, the reuse facilities, we can do at a small scale at our transfer stations. Maybe if somebody has a business plan to come up with out there to create reuse facilities, bring the proposal to us. Maybe there's a way that we can start, taking some of that material as opposed to the towns having reuse centers there. Maybe we can take it to somebody to fix, repair, and maybe sell to cover the cost of trucking or whatever else it may be. It is a possibility, but would the county? I know there's some grant funding with this, so a private individual may be able to get some grant funding to be able to do this. Is there state funding involved? There could be. I think for us to get into reuse, I don't think it would benefit us to do that. I think at the town level of having reuse centers there, again at a small scale, that may work better. Maybe if one of the towns is willing to do something similar to what the town of Chester does, that would make that scale a little bit larger. As far as composting, there's not a lot of people out there composting. Again, I've talked with the Zero Waste Initiative about kind of doing a pilot project in Warren County. By no means are we ready to do something based on the size of Ulster County. There is a significant capital cost associated with that. Some of that, I want to say the biggest is they have at least, and Claudia, you correct me if I'm wrong, but they had at least 2.5 people to run the composting facility. They take in about 4,000 tons a year of food waste, and they're producing about 1,700 tons of compost, last numbers that I had, and selling it at a cost of about $30 a ton. So $51,000. I know they have a lot of bonds and capital costs that they haven't, paid for yet. They have a $450,000 tub grinding machine that they're paying off with some of the revenues that they achieve, as well as the bond. So again, for us to do it in-house, to pilot project and see how it goes, I think it's a great idea. Private, if there's a private company willing to take it on, and there's a worm composting facility in Washington County. They currently service our entire area, including Saratoga County. Many people might not know about it. They provide you with a 5-gallon bucket for food scraps. Residents can fill this 5-gallon bucket and either get a weekly pickup or a bi-weekly pickup. I think there's a very minor fee, but then they also get a yard, or depending on how their pickup is, 2 yards of compost delivered to them every year at no cost. It is definitely a good idea, but that's one of the few companies around here who's doing any type of composting. Again, the peer-to-peer programs, education, educating towns, education institutions, educating businesses about sorting, recycling, even residences having seminars on food waste. I can tell you I compost in my own backyard because I have a spot that I'm able to do it. There's probably not a lot of people in the city of Glens Falls who can compost in their backyard. But I think just the educational component and going out, whether it's website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or going out and doing seminars, I think that'll go a long ways in getting more individuals to recycle and reuse. One of the things that Zero Waste does talk about, and I talked about it earlier, is issuing bonds to capitalize, the infrastructure that's needed. Again, I can let them talk to that a little bit more, but that's not a decision for me to make. And in the times, the financial times that we are in right now, I'm not sure how that would go over. The last thing that they really talked about is the comparative financial analysis of zero waste versus the waste and energy plan. No one's done that analysis yet. I think, with the help of them, I'd be more than willing to take a look at that. And maybe with their help, come up with that financial analysis. But I don't believe that we truly have hard and fast concrete numbers for that yet. So with that being said, that's most of the comments I received. I also will tell you I received a couple comments. Hopefully I won't lose you on my screen. Let me know if I do. I had an email that I received today, I think from Amanda. These are comments that came in today regarding the solid waste, and they basically said that reduce waste generation in the unit, website seminars and generation paper brochures would generate additional solid waste. I get it, it does, but you got to get the word out there. Maybe that's where if we want to lean more away from using brochures, but putting something on print, then again, it goes to websites. If we create a county website, all the towns off of their website could put a link that it would link everyone right from the towns to the county. Somebody who's maybe from a vacationer who lives up here in the summer, doesn't know anything about recycling or solid waste or composting, they might go to the town website to look something up, and there will be a link that maybe would convert them over to the county's website. A lot of the other recommendations in the email, again, is similar to what the Zero Waste Committee had proposed. I did receive one email from an individual in Queensbury who actually praised the local solid waste management plan. We're happy that we're discussing all these items. They complimented us on basically you are moving in the right direction, knowing, and this was the kind of the caveat to their email, knowing there is a cost involved, but we're moving in the right direction. So with that being said, I think that's the end of my presentation, and Ron, I can turn this back over to you. You're on mute, Ron.
I think that's the most I've ever heard you talk. By the way, the driving iron has a slice. You may not like it.
It does.
All right. With that, I think we should immediately go to Don Lehman. Don, are you on the line?
Yes, Chairman Conover.
Okay, Don, any comments we've received during this meeting, I think should be brought to the committee and put into the record, if you would.
Okay, I will start with the YouTube chat portion of this, and it is lengthy, so please be ready to listen to my voice for quite a while.
Okay.
Okay, we will start with, well, we had one question about the URL, which was answered. That was posted in the chat by Jeremy and IT, who posted the URL to the presentation, which was very helpful. We have Tom Randall pointing out Lake George has a reuse shed 2 now. We have Diane Collins. Her comment is suggested reuse pay-as-you-throw ideas would impact the plan's waste diversion goals, but the goals are so very small, 0 to 4% in the SAMLL. Another from Diane Collins. We already have robust edible food waste arrangements in the Glens Falls area with our food pantries and Walmart, Hannaford, for example. Diane Collins, can a pilot compost project be included in the plan? From a user identified as MB Milot, HHW Day needs more publicity. I had to hunt down info to find out about it. From Tracy Frisch, the plan doesn't talk about pay-as-you-throw for residential collection, private haulers in almost all municipalities. Why not? Much more waste than what residents take to transfer stations. From Tracy Frisch, Waste Zero Consultants helps municipalities to transition to pay-as-you-throw. I don't believe that municipalities are charged for this service. Would Warren County consider working with them? Tracy Frisch, enforcement of haulers is absolutely crucial. Whether it's called licensing or permitting, very important. Haulers taking recyclables to incinerator undermines people's willingness to recycle. From Lisa Adamson, should budget/new staffing be a determining factor if this is job creation and combats pollution? Tracy Frisch, why doesn't the solid waste plan propose a dedicated funding mechanism for managing the county's MSW in such a way as to promote waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and composting? Lisa Adamson, can the county inspire/mandate each municipality to initiate pilot programs in reuse venues at transfer stations, composting, dual stream, and distracting of one hauler per district? From Tracy Frisch, though this is identified as a Tony Kravitsky who signed in under Tracy. He actually didn't have a comment. He was just identifying himself as signing in under that color. From Lisa Adamson, that was redistricting of one hauler per district to lessen stress on roadways and reduce emissions. From Diane Collins, do we need to wait for the next 10-year plan to include some of Kevin's ideas? From Tracy Frisch, there are many MRFs now. Would the county like info about what that would entail? A dual stream mini MRF would entice private haulers to take recyclables to a sorting facility and incentivize dual stream. From Elizabeth Crawford, how much residual solid waste do you foresee having to truck? How can you have a plan without goals for this? From Tracy Frisch, there is good info for franchising with higher requirements for recycling, organics collection. We could get you model contract and RFP language from other municipalities. Would you be interested? From Diane Collins, please include in the plan the formation of a planning committee with Zero Waste Committee, citizen volunteers, and DPW staff to work with Kevin on his ideas for better waste diversion. From Tracy Frisch, why not tie accurate data reporting from haulers to enforcement? Also, the City of Troy Recycling Coordinator is implementing data reporting and is happy to share her experience and recommendations. From Patricia Budlong, has the county created a plan to create a composting facility for food waste? From Tracy Frisch, I think it's less about education than providing better opportunities for people and business to divert all kinds of materials and items. Education without better opportunities is less effective. From Patricia Budlong, county plan should provide specific measurable goals for waste reduction. From Tracy Frisch, when I asked her if she wanted me to read her 16-page email, my comments are 16 pages. I have a list of what is outdated in the plan and many comments on the plan's recommendation. So that will be read here after I read the YouTube comments. From Tracy Frisch, more importantly, why not have responses to our comments and questions here? From Tom Randall, Warrensburg converted to charging by the pound. From Jeffrey Flagg, given the amount of baseline data that was collected in the study, including future projections, does the plan include any measurable goals for reducing, reusing, and/or recycling the county's MSW? From Tom Randall, and reduction of waste stream occurred past PAS well as a boost in revenue. From Paul Hancock, any plans to find landfills that don't report the amount of waste they receive? Any accountability policy, ? From Tracy Frisch, it would be far easier in Warren County, San Francisco, Seattle. It would be far easier in Warren County, period. San Francisco, Seattle, and LA have reached 70% waste diversion rate. We will hold a Zoom meeting with case studies with 1 or 2 municipalities, 50% reduction. From Diane Collins, Kevin, can't we move the diversion goal up to at least 30% in the next 8 years? From Diane Collins, the $10 hauler surcharge would help pay for the staff you need. Who should we lobby to make that happen? From Tracy Frisch, the $10 ton surcharge would apply to all MSW going for disposal, whether to Wheelabrator, Hudson Falls, or a landfill. From Diane Collins, again, what would grocery stores do with their inedible food waste? They may want to compost, but no compost facility in our region. From Elizabeth Crawford, well done, Kevin, thank you. From Diane Collins, having all towns doing their own recycling and diversion programs seems haphazard and uncoordinated. Warren County DPW should coordinate and oversee, set goals, and measure results. That's all we have on YouTube. Now I have a number of emails to read. Do we want a break? You want me to get right into reading those?
Yes, good on. Continue.
Okay. From a Stephen Barada. My name is Stephen Barada. I live in Glens Falls. My question has to do with process and next steps. It is my understanding that all of the public comments and questions will be summarized and answered with them attached to the plan that will be resubmitted. Will those comments and responses from the DPW committee be available to the public? If so, how and when? Next, I would like to address the process going forward once the question/comments are summarized and answered. Does the DPW just send the plan as is, but with comments/questions attached? Is there an opportunity to change some of the draft plan itself based upon questions/comments and any enlightening new info? Or has that boat already sailed? Does the draft plan that is ultimately sent off to DEC need approval from the DPW committee, the full board, or both? If the newly minted solid waste plan is sent back for revisions by the state, what is the process of keeping the public informed? Again, from Mr. Barada, my question is, what role do you see the public playing, including the Zero Waste Committee, going forward? It would be a shame to not utilize the expertise and desire to work with government that is available. Okay, from a David Porter. Oh, actually, well, it comes in our email as David Porter, but it's signed in Elizabeth Crawford. How much did the county spend on the draft solid waste plan? Public education. Who will create the brochures? What money will you use for printing and distribution? Will the seminars be provided to the county for free? Will they cost something? What money will be used to provide these? How will they be promoted? Reuse centers. Why is it considered more efficient to distribute this responsibility to the towns? How will towns pay for reuse centers? How will reuse centers be promoted? Who will produce the promotions? How will data on reuse be collected and processed? Who will do this? How much will the towns have to spend to dispose of unrevised materials? Enforcement. Who will enforce the laws already on the books that have not been enforced in the last 25 years? How will this be paid for? If, as Mr. Hajo says, there are not enough people in the department to do this enforcement, how will you be sure there are enough people to do this important work? Which department will this be provided through? Fines could be one source. The people who are already working for the county, I am sure, are already working to their fullest extent. Hauler licensing franchising. If there are 25 or so haulers in the county, who will keep track of the permitting and renewals? The people who are already working for the county, I am sure, are already all working at their fullest extent. Markets for recyclable materials. Can't the county work with surrounding counties to develop these? There would be a need for someone to have a high level of responsibility for this. How much residual solid waste do you foresee having to truck? And this is also from Elizabeth Crawford. Data collection. Who is going to do this important data collection work? How would this person/people be paid? Holding people's feet to the fire is important, but is not really a plan. Please put a person in charge of this, not just add it to some already random overworked person's job description. Funding these important things. A $5 or $10 per ton fee on the haulers would bring in $250,000 to $500,000 a year that the county could use to produce an excellent program. Please put this into the WCSWMP. That's Elizabeth Crawford. Okay, we've got an email from Diane Collins. I hope this meeting will not be the only way to decide on the solid waste management plan for the next 8 years. A Zoom meeting with Kevin and the Public Works Committee would be really useful. Regarding the garbage haulers, what does DPW think of our recommendation to the $10 per ton surcharge on garbage destined for disposal from each hauler? Does Warren County know who the haulers are? Glens Falls has a list, Queensbury has no list. How will you contact them to require permits? Can you review the data information the draft plan recommends collecting from the haulers? And then in parentheses, seems vague. Is the 1991 source separation law being enforced at all? I identified 6 different hauling companies on my street, 0.3 miles long. I called them. 3 take all the trash, including recyclables, they pick up to Wheelabrator, Hudson Falls for incineration. I have seen at the Luzerne Road transfer station recyclables going down the chute to be compacted and taken to Wheelabrator, even though there are bins for plastic, glass, tin, metals, etc. there. Regarding Wheelabrator, what is the plan for when Wheelabrator Hudson Falls ages out? We are told by elected officials this will probably happen during the 2019 to 2028 plan period. This draft plan does not address this happening. The information about projected landfills use is outdated. Regarding incorrect information in the draft plan, has DPW reviewed all the information in the plan and identified the errors? For example, one of our Zero Waste Committee members called the companies listed in the plan that took tires and found misinformation, i.e. 2 of the companies were no longer in business and none of the others took tires. Some of the waste management resources listed in the plan are outdated. Zero waste approach, waste reduction goals, and plan modification. How are you, DPW, and the Waste Management Committee responding to our recommended zero waste approach, clearly defined in the Zero Waste Vision paper given out to all parties? What is your response to members in the community wanting a change in waste management practices? Already, over 42 prominent community members have endorsed our Zero Waste Vision paper. Can you modify the draft plan before having the Board of Supervisors approve it? How do you respond to the minimal? How do you respond to the minimal waste reduction and diversion goals of 0 to 4% in the draft plan? Are they adequate? Does this reflect any significant changes in current waste management practices throughout the county? Is this really acceptable? Do you support the importance of Warren County coordinating and setting goals for diversion efforts that the different municipalities take on? Are the plan's recommended composting education flyers and seminars enough to stop the incineration of food scrap waste? When businesses learn about the importance of composting, where will the food scraps go? This shows the need for a composting facility in our area. Can you require the paid consulting firm R.S. Lynch & Company that wrote the plan to correct errors and add recommended modifications before approving it? This firm notes on its letterhead, helping municipal officials make good solid waste decisions since 1987. It just seems to me that the draft county plan does not offer good solid waste decisions that address the enormous waste and cost of throwing away potential resources. The county plan should have a much higher solid waste diversion goal, along with an action blueprint of current successful strategies used by other municipalities in the U.S. And then signed, question and comments by Diane Collins, Warren County resident, Zero Waste Committee member. Now we have a email comment from Tracy Frisch. My comments are divided into 4 different sections as follows. 1, relevant lessons for Warren County's draft solid waste plan from the experience of constructing my owner-built house. 2, major emissions in the draft plan for the county and DEC to address. 3, out-of-date information in the draft plan. 4, the plan's recommendations are inadequate. Starting with relevant lessons for Warren County's draft solid waste plan from the experience of constructing my owner-built house. My most important comment on the Warren County draft solid waste plan is that a plan should be a roadmap to a meaningful destination. It should function like a blueprint. As such, it should have an explicit purpose besides checking a box that a state-mandated plan has been drafted. A measurable goal or measurable goals to be achieved by a certain date should inform any plan. A plan should list the elements needed and provide instruction on how to put them together into the desired product. Recommendations for implementation should be specific and should reference proven models. Since a plan should involve working toward a goal or goals, it must provide guidance for evaluation, perhaps in the form of milestones. And it should discuss how to problem solve and adjust the plan if the county finds that adequate progress toward the goal is not being made. Sadly, none of these things are present in Warren County's draft solid waste plan. As the co-designer, general contractor, and main laborer on my small, passive, solar energy efficient house, I am no stranger to plans. In 2004, I began constructing the owner-built house in which I live. I had only a little experience with carpentry, so I was glad that I could call on more experienced friends to assist me. Also, when I designed my house, I sought out and learned from many experienced individuals. I could not have built my house, which I have called my home for 15 years, without the expertise of others. Similarly, Warren County, which currently has a minimal involvement in solid waste management, should reach out to people with a proven record of accomplishment in waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and composting, and in the oversight of private waste haulers and the development of effective waste diversion programs in order to learn what is possible and some of the ways to best achieve it. The blueprints for my house, made by a friend, served as my instruction manual. They told me what to order from the sawmill and indicated the dimensions to cut each piece of lumber and how to assemble them together. In contrast, Warren County's plan is consistently vague in its recommendations. I started with explicit goals in designing my house. They included energy efficiency, natural lighting, adequate ventilation, beauty, and durability. The blueprints were informed by hundreds of decisions aimed at achieving my goals. Like Warren County, my finances were limited, so I consistently looked for the biggest bang for the buck when I considered the different options. I generally did not bother with expensive means of getting a small benefit. If I didn't put as much thought into design and planning as I did, I am certain that my house would not have performed as well as it has over the last 15 years. Each year for heating, I use between 1 and 1.5 cords of firewood and about 50 gallons of propane, and I rarely use any artificial lighting during the day. My purpose here is not to brag about my house, but to suggest that my home construction experience offers lessons that are relevant to Warren County's solid waste plan. Warren County's plan is not designed to achieve any explicit goals. I want to throw up my arms and ask, so what's the point of the plan then? I think back to my adventure in house construction. It would have been unthinkable to devote so much time and aggravation to building a house if I did not care to achieve anything worthwhile. My goal would have been as simple as owning an affordable house that would require minimal maintenance. But I hope you agree that there has to be a goal. The absence of goals in the county's plan, coupled with its disappointing content, suggests that the document endorses business as usual with a few minor tweaks. Is this because the county is performing exceptionally well in the field of solid waste? Does the county possess a top-notch solid waste management plan that needs only the slightest improvements? Absolutely not. It can easily be argued that Warren County does not have a system of solid waste.
Is that just me?
Most of its municipalities operate their own transfer stations for their residents as required by integrated waste services. Corporations in the U.S. choose single truck waste haulers, collect the majority of the MSW in the county, and they conduct their activities without any obvious oversight by the county. Given this reality, the plan needs to define its goals. Bold and meaningful goals are best suited to drive action. The goal recommended by the Zero Waste Planning Committee, of which I am a member, is 50% waste diversion in 5 years. This goal may sound ridiculous, but experience in other jurisdictions proves that it is realistic and achievable and highly beneficial to the environment and the economy. According to US EPA, the national recycling rate is around 35%, though I suspect it is lower in Warren County. The 50% diversion goal has repeatedly been achieved by many different cities, towns, and counties in the US and globally. Such a goal would provide the framework to guide the county in selecting more effective strategies. Instead, the county has a draft plan that throws out a list of vague suggestions, which it then repeatedly states can only be expected to have the most marginal of effects at reducing waste. How sad and self-defeating. The draft plan's fallback is education to change practices. Thus, it suggests that an undesignated existing staff person employed by the county should produce several types of brochures and hold several different seminars for local businesses to encourage greater recycling and waste reduction activities. Such recommendations are mind-boggling on multiple grounds. I'm astounded that a consultant believes that such activities are worthy of inclusion in a county solid waste plan. I wonder if there is a county employee with the available time and knowledge to undertake such projects. The expert who wrote the plan offers no examples of the sorts of information to be presented in such brochures and seminars. I wonder how businesses would bother attending such seminars. And I need to point out that the plan itself contains outdated and incorrect information for use by the county, including the directory in the appendix of companies that recycle various materials and items. Telling people to recycle more will have little effect if recycling opportunities are compromised and limited. I say compromised because of the evidence that multiple waste haulers take source-separated recyclables to the Hudson Falls incinerator or commingle them with garbage in their trucks. In addition, single-stream recycling, which studies find to have as much as 5 times the contamination rate as dual-stream, results in a far lower quantity of recyclables actually being recycled. Yet the plan insists on emphasizing behavioral change rather than proposing improved, more convenient ways for businesses and residents to increase their participation in recycling, composting, reuse, and other waste diversion actions. For instance, nowhere in the plan does the consultant consider adding additional items to the menu of recyclables. If the county wants to increase recycling, why not look at creating a center for hard-to-recycle items such as mattresses, textiles, electronics, paints, etc.? Why not take a truly serious look at reuse along with repair as a way to capture the most valuable items that would otherwise be squandered in the waste stream? Instead, the plan simply tells its already struggling towns to add reuse to the constellation of their transfer station services without specific suggestions on how to do so successfully and with maximum impact. For my house, instead of expecting that I would reduce my use of energy to heat my home through behavioral changes like being stingy with heat, I designed my house with double wall construction. The blueprints call for 2 parallel stud frames nailed 12 inches apart in order to make a 12-inch cavity for insulation. The blueprints also directed me to put thick insulation panels under the concrete slab. In addition, the roof was designed with enough of an overhang to allow a thick layer of insulation to be blown in the attic to the edge of the exterior walls. Such fixes would not be possible after the house was built. They had to be integral to construction. But if the blueprints for my house were as vague as the county's plan, they would have simply suggested that extra insulation be added to my walls and attic and that the floor be insulated. Without the specifications such as double wall construction, those suggestions would be more gestures impossible to implement. Because my house is energy efficient, I automatically use much less energy than the average homeowner. I did not need to remind myself to change my behavior. If I kept the fire in my wood stove going 24/7, my house would be way too hot for comfort, so using less firewood than the average homeowner is a given. I recommend that the county apply similar principles in its solid waste plan. Establish bold, measurable goals, then design a system that makes it easier for people to divert many more elements in the waste stream for reuse, recycling, and composting. At the same time, create incentives for residents and businesses to engage in behaviors, i.e. responsible source separation practices for reuse, recycling, and composting that help the county meet its solid waste diversion goal. The county can also adjust the cost of waste disposal, make it more expensive to discourage wasting. Learn from accomplished zero waste municipalities rather than muddling through it alone. There is a large body of information about what works and what doesn't that should be accessed. This is not rocket science. A solid waste management plan that seeks to reduce the amount of waste being incinerated or landfilled needs to create opportunities for all residents and businesses to conveniently and effectively divert as many components of their MSW as possible for reuse, recycling, and composting. This cannot be an afterthought. It has to be built into every aspect of the whole solid waste management system. If the county wants to change behavior on the individual resident and business owner level, I would recommend that it introduce feedback mechanisms that reward responsible behavior and discourage irresponsible practices. I wager that this will be much more successful than another round of brochures. In my house as in yours, some helpful feedback mechanisms are naturally present. For instance, I don't fling my windows wide open in the winter because that would freeze my house. Leaving my windows open in cold weather would also cost me a lot more and require far more effort on my part, stacking and moving firewood, maintaining the fire in the wood stove to keep my house warm. But in the solid waste arena, what feedback mechanism exists to discourage a person or business from putting immense amounts of stuff in the trash and failing to separate out recyclables and organics and goods for reuse? Only a very small cost increase because getting rid of waste remains pretty cheap. Pay as you throw is a widely accepted mechanism that does address this issue and has demonstrated large effect in discouraging wasting, but with dozens of different waste haulers, it's unclear how this would be implemented in Warren County. I made a variety of small mistakes in the construction of my house. that is inevitable for a first-time builder. Similarly, the county, which currently lacks expertise in managing solid waste, especially from a zero-waste perspective, should resist the urge to manage solid waste in a vacuum. And rather than relying on armchair consultants who specialize in writing plans, the county should avail itself of some of the amazing resources at its disposal. For example, why not reach out to some of the people on the ground who are known for the successful zero-waste oriented programs that they have created? Sadly, the draft plan does not present any examples of the important model programs that the county could replicate or learn from. As members of the Zero Waste Planning Committee, we have been greatly impressed by the willingness of such accomplished leaders to assist other communities in creating their own programs. For example, the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency offered to mentor Warren County in setting up a food waste composting operation, as it has already done with a handful of other towns and counties. And Finger Lakes Reuse is developing a template to assist other communities in developing similar impactful programs and finding funding for them. These are only two of the many model programs. The Zero Waste Planning Committee would be happy to help the county connect with a variety of model programs that it could consider replicating in the local context. I decided to incorporate various energy efficient features into my house plan after learning about them through deliberate research. I attended workshops about passive solar energy efficient homes. I listened to talks by experts and met with vendors. I went on solar house tours, and through my social network, I sought out people with interesting houses to visit. I read books and articles. When I had questions, I called up people that I had met or been referred to. A parallel process of learning from proven models is essential in the field of solid waste. Members of our Zero Waste Committee attended trainings on zero waste planning led by national experts. We reached out to people leading zero waste type programs, initiatives in repair and reuse, recycling, composting, and more in the private and public sectors. They were knowledgeable and passionate and generally generous with their expertise, even though they were busy. Some of them make it part of their mission to assist others in program development. In doing research to build my house, I developed enough expertise to feel confident about my choices. After my house was completed, I was invited to put my house in an annual solar tour, which I did. We are confident that one day Warren County will be recognized as a leader in zero waste, and other municipalities will come calling, looking for guidance. As a first-time builder, feedback loops have repeatedly led me to make urgent corrections. Over the years, especially the early ones, my house has been beset with a series of potential disasters. An incursion of rate in my house soon after I moved in due to an error in construction, a flood in my bathroom after a contractor installed my spring-fed water system and we had a thunderstorm, another flood due to a busted valve on the pressure tank installed for my new drilled well, a groundhog burrowing into the outlet for my house's French drains, and one or more squirrels taking up residence in the attic. The saving grace for me in the house was that these problems were quickly discovered and attended to. I was the responsible party. If no one lived in the house, any of these problems could have become a full-blown catastrophe. Getting back to Warren County, since the county lacks a responsible party charged with general oversight and meeting explicit solid waste goals, it's easy for the county to ignore serious problems in the waste sector. This is extremely unfortunate. I will address one particularly troubling problem. There have been many reports from firsthand observers of waste haulers in Warren County taking source-separated recyclables to the incinerator or dumping the recyclables that they collect curbside directly into their garbage trucks. SUNY Adirondack Professor of Environmental Studies Tom Mowat stated in a July 29, 2020 email to me, I have taken the liberty of following tractor trailers hauling waste, not to a recycling facility as advertised, but the Hudson Falls incinerator. During research projects, my students report that they are told that plastic burns hot, thereby undermining plastic recycling efforts. The scope of this disturbing problem is unknown. Besides wasting recyclables by taking them for disposal rather than for sorting and then reprocessing, such unlawful practices destroy residents' confidence in recycling and their willingness to comply. However, Warren County has no mechanism for sanctioning waste companies that engage in such illegal activities. So much for the rule of law. I would add that there are several ways to respond to such allegations. Investigate the issue and welcome photo, video, and other forms of documentation from concerned residents. 2, consider doing a needs assessment with waste haulers to determine what issues they faced. Maybe this should be done by a neutral third party that would protect the identity of waste haulers that are committing unlawful acts. It would seem important to find answers to certain questions. Did haulers recently change what they do with the recyclables they collect, or have they always been skirting the law? Did they used to take their recyclables to a material recovery facility for sorting? Are they stymied by logistical challenges that prevent them from getting their recyclables to a MRF? Is this problem greatest for small haulers that don't have tractor trailers, or is the size of the business irrelevant? Perhaps large waste companies are taking recyclables to the incinerator too, but at a different point in the process. Has the cost of taking recyclables to commercial transfer stations in the area become exorbitant? While I raise these particular points from a place of ignorance, I would argue that getting to the bottom of this issue is a matter of public concern. Like every county in New York State, Warren County enacted a source separation law close to 30 years ago, Local Law 2 of 1991. Waste haulers that collect garbage must provide separate collection of recyclables. However, since Warren County has no enforcement mechanism, the path of least resistance for waste haulers is to undercut recycling, especially since the cost of sorting at a MRF has skyrocketed. This occurred because markets for recyclables shrunk due to the high levels of contamination in single-stream recycling and China's subsequent rejection of U.S. contaminated recyclables. The draft plan said the county should do enforcement, but has precious few words about how to do so. I have touched on some of many of the inadequacies of the draft plan. I will next provide a list of priority recommendations that have been omitted from the plan. But first, I want to underline a fatal omission in the plan. That is the question of dedicated funding. The plan is written as if funding is irrelevant to solid waste management. Nothing could be further from the truth. Without dedicated funding, any new initiative that is proposed is likely to be dead on arrival. However, new initiatives, including but not limited to data reporting by haulers and transfer stations, are urgently required. I would not have been able to build my house without adequate funds, and I certainly would not have been able to make my house energy efficient or passive solar if I had to skimp on insulation or the size or quality of my south-facing windows. Similarly, I predict that Warren County will not be able to make meaningful strides in managing its solid waste, whether through data collection or enforcement, or a composting operation or reuse programs, without a dedicated source of funding. Therefore, I call on the New York State DEC to reject the county's solid waste plan until it addresses the need for an adequate source of dedicated funding. Both dedicated staff and additional infrastructure for operations such as composting, reuse, and a dual-stream mini MRF to boost recycling are needed to bring Warren County into the 21st century. It is unfair to everyone, residents, businesses, county and town employees, and future generations, to keep expecting public works departments to continue to do more with fewer resources. To county supervisors who don't want to be thought of as unrealistic, I call on you to embrace the need for a dedicated funding mechanism. I ask you, which idea is unrealistic? The idea that no dedicated funding is needed, or our achievable and realistic 50% waste diversion goal? Okay, next section. Important priorities for the plan. There are major omissions in the draft plan for the county and DEC to address, not in priority order. 1, the draft plan does not reflect the principles and practices of zero waste, an approach that is gaining momentum across the country and globally. Zero waste is an aspirational goal that drives decisions in order to greatly reduce the percentage of the waste stream that is incinerated or landfill. A zero waste perspective understands that many of the components of the waste stream are valuable resources that can drive local economic activity and local job creation. These waste stream components include food scraps and yard and tree waste for composting, recyclables, whether paper, cardboard, and metal, glass and plastic containers or hard-to-recycle items such as electronics, mattresses, and textiles, and goods that can be reused even if they required repair. 2, waste diversion goals set in the draft plan for the next 8 years were strikingly small. Much of the draft plan's content involves managing waste via incineration and landfills rather than significantly diverting solid waste and seeing it as valuable resources. The county should adopt the goal of 50% waste diversion, reduce, reuse, recycle, compost by 2025, and take strategic steps to achieve it, as many cities and counties have already done, proving that such an ambitious proposal is both realistic and achievable. 3, the draft plan makes many vague recommendations about measurable objectives or any plan to assess their implementation and impact. The plan should instead borrow from successful models developed for waste diversion and for job creation and economic development in zero waste communities to develop a meaningful agenda for Warren County. Also, all recommendations should be specific with measurable objectives and should include milestones and a method for assessing success. The draft plan does not even mention the 2019 New York State Food Donation and Food Scrap Recovery Law that takes effect January 1, 2022, which calls for diverting food waste from landfills and incinerators and turning it into profitable compost. Warren County should set up a municipal food waste composting operation, starting with a pilot project for the first couple of years. We recommend using an aerated static pile system that is used by Ulster County and the town of Bethlehem. This system is modular and so can be very easily expanded to meet future demands. 5, no coordinated centralized system of diversion, reduce, reuse, recycle, compost was recommended in the draft plan. Diversion suggestions with minimal impact were included for each town, city, and village to continue to arrange their own waste and recycling systems. Much more coordination, cooperation, goal setting, and oversight are essential and needed to be added to the plan. 6, the draft plan does not recommend any source of funding to increase waste diversion, reduce, reuse, recycle, and compost. This lack of funding is a big barrier to developing needed diversion infrastructure and programs. A surcharge of $10 per ton on all waste going for disposal to the incinerator or landfill would generate close to $550,000 a year, enabling the county to establish a composting facility, reuse centers, and even a dual stream facility to sort recyclables, for example. This surcharge would add $4 or $5 a year to the cost of solid waste disposal per capita based on the USA EPA per capita solid waste estimates, and so would not penalize or be a hardship on either the haulers or residents. 7, we support the draft plan's recommendation for waste data reporting and believe that in concert with a reporting requirement, the county should set up a licensing program for haulers with an annual fee based on the number of trucks each company operates in the county. Companies that rent dumpsters should also be suggested to licensing and data reporting. The county should require all waste haulers to report quarterly data about the waste and recyclables they collect, including the final destination for waste and recyclables by weight. Town transfer stations should also be required to report data and income expenses to the county. As part of the data reporting requirement, the county should require pertinent supporting documentation such as weight slips and invoices from waste disposal sites, transfer stations, and sorting facilities, MRFs, to allow the county to verify the accuracy of reports and determine whether recyclables are being taken to processing facilities or are legally transported for disposal. Without this data, it is impossible to know if the county is making progress towards zero waste. This data will also be useful for establishing a surcharge on waste going for disposal and for determining whether waste companies are following local law number 2 of 1991, the source separation law. The annual licensing fee for waste companies that should be set at a level that would fund a county employee to manage the licensing program and the data reported by waste haulers and other waste companies and transfer stations. That employee would also be responsible for verifying the accuracy of data reported by reviewing weight slips and invoices, for example. 8, the county should enforce its source separation law. Any waste hauler found to be mixing waste and recyclables which customers have put out separately for curbside collection, or B, taking recyclables to the Hudson Falls incinerator or for disposal to the landfill, should be fined and required to change its practices. A second infraction should result in the loss of a waste hauler's license. 9, explore the development of a dual-stream county-owned mini MRF, materials recovery facility, or a small-scale processing facility that the private haulers could deliver the recyclables to for a reasonable fee. 10, financially support the initial development of a local nonprofit reuse business dedicated to reuse, repair, and job training, in order to jumpstart the reuse sector and bring hard-to-employ people into the job market earning a living wage. There are 2 more sections of my comments. First, I document instances in which the draft solid waste plan relies on old data, old resources, and other out-of-date information. And lastly, I present detailed comments on the plan's recommendations. For the record, we are halfway through the 16-page comment at this point. So I'm now starting page 9.
Don, can I interject?
Sure.
I just received an email from Tracy. who suggested that you stop reading her comments. She would prefer to have a dialogue. You do have those comments received, and any comments that you have received are recorded, and they will be included as part of this plan. So, but Tracy just sent me a message to ask you to stop reading them.
Okay, that works for me.
Do all of the committee members have a copy of the 16-page document?
I can forward her comments to anybody who needs them. I do have them via email. And I will get Kevin all of the emails I have received as well in a hard copy.
That's fine, Don. We'll submit the rest of it for the record. I didn't want to do any shortcuts without the commenter's permission. What else do you have, Don? Don, anything else?
No, I'm looking at, well, there was another couple of comments on YouTube posted after I read the YouTube comments, if you want those.
Sure, let's hear them.
Okay, from Diane Collins, having all the towns doing their own recycling and diversion programs seems haphazard and uncoordinated. Warren County DPW should coordinate and oversee, set goals, and measure results. From MB Milot, events like Repair Cafes and Sustainable Saratoga Recycle Reuse Day, coming again in October, may have small impact on reducing waste stream, but they do put the issue front and center and into the public domain. From Tracy Frisch, thanks for your openness to our well-researched ideas, Kevin. We look forward to more robust waste reduction efforts in the future and are happy to help in any way we can. From MB Milot, will we be able to get a URL of all these great comments to be available to reread? And that is it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now with that, I think, like I said, I'll open it up to the committee. I provided my comment verbally. Just briefly, we certainly need to make sure that the information in the report is accurate and up to date. A particular interest to me is this section, the table on page 76, which begins to explore options if and when the burn plant is no longer operational or at such time as we no longer wish to take MSW to the burn plant. And also I mentioned to Kevin and just one thing I want to mention, just for those of you that may not be aware, in terms of Bolton, and I assume the other transfer stations, a significant amount of our waste is picked up privately. Hotel, the large generators, restaurants, supermarkets, etc. And many homeowners have their waste picked up privately. None of that is brought to our transfer station. The only thing that's brought to our transfer station is that MSW that homeowners wish to transport themselves on the 5 collection days that we have. But I just wanted to make sure that people, at least in terms of Bolton, that the tonnage and the numbers we're producing in Bolton in no way reflect the total MSW of the community. Any other comments? Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's population is holding steady, according to this report on page 14 out of 142. There is no change over the next 8 years here on, am I on the right page? Yeah, that for, if I'm reading this correct here, estimated future MSW generation rates, and it's basically holding steady across the board. Meanwhile, the report does give a number of little over 5 pounds per day per person. So unless we're expecting no increase whatsoever on population, something's, I was wondering if you could explain anything on that, Kevin or Todd.
Well, first of all, if you look back, I mean, this report was originally done in 2011, and we were only addressing comments that we received from DEC. Even when we looked at the previous report that was done, there was not a significant change. I mean, if you're talking 1,000 people from 63,000 to 62,000, 65,000, there was a significant amount of kind of uptick in the municipal solid waste. When we asked them to project it out, based on the numbers that we've seen over the past years, the population, we kind of asked them to hold steady. We don't see a significant increase in population over the next, say, 8 years in Warren County.
But that
I mean,
doesn't,
go ahead.
it doesn't take into account visitors and my calculation, that was the 8 million days was worth about 22,000 people a year, an increase in residency. So as we continue to expand our visitations, that should have some impact as well, and it is not accounted for.
Well, Craig, is that not accounted for in the 8 million days? Because that includes visitors to Warren County.
What happens when it goes up to 10 or 12 million dollars, 10 or 12 million days? Again,
it's a number that I can have them update. Again, this was a report that was submitted back to DEC in 2011, and we were only addressing the comments that we had received during the time from DEC. But by all means, we can have RS Lynch, update this even further. The fact that it is, we're only addressing comments, but if I do ask them to make significant changes, and again, I'm not talking about significant changes as far as whether or not we adopt zero waste initiatives. I'm talking about correcting the information they had, which was just addressing DEC's comments. There will be a cost associated with it. I'm more than willing to bring that to committee and let that go. And then what will happen is DEC will probably ask us to do another 45-day comment period, because the draft local solid waste management plan will significantly change.
I guess then that brings up the question, is this plan really just checking the boxes to fit what DEC is requiring us to do, or is it really actually a strategic plan on how we handle a huge issue? I know that for the town of Chester, budget-wise, it's one of our biggest budget items, and it's going to continue to be. And it's scary to think of what happens when Hudson Falls closes down, and everybody else is scrambling for landfills, and we know that that is a finite resource as well.
Craig, I just want to jump in. This is not checking the box. This is a plan. It is the plan to reduce solid waste moving forward. Maybe not at the level that some may want, but that is the object of this plan. Again, I laid out during my presentation some things that can be done to reduce that solid waste. So that is a plan moving forward that we're going to look to initiate that. But again, do I do it at a county level, or do I do it at a level where now I have to start talking to all the towns? Do you want to go to a pay-as-you-throw program? Do you want to create a composting facility at your site? You already do the reuse, which is great, but does any one of the other supervisors want to have a reuse facility at their transfer station? So it's not just to check the box for us. We have a plan. We have a lot of suggestions in the plans. Maybe not up to the percentage amounts that others may want. They are small. They're not ambitious goals. I think they're more realistic goals. But again, you heard it from Zero Waste, and I will say the same thing. If I had a funding mechanism, more funding in place, I'm sure we could do much more with this plan. But again, it comes down to funding.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think this really points out this needs to go even beyond our county and include other regional for us to address our municipal solid waste and C&D in a larger issue. And that's probably beyond the scope of this plan. Thank you.
I concur. Anyone else wish to speak at this time? Claudia?
I do, thanks. So I was going to make my comments about editing the plan before it goes back to DEC. But what Kevin just said makes me feel like this has been an entire check the box exercise and that we are not actually going to do any substantive changes to the plan based on the public comments that came in before us, and that we're only making editorial comments changes. I have a lot of things in the Zero Waste Committee's plan in their outline of steps to success, plus a couple of other things that I've thought about, especially during this time frame, and I don't hear us having an opportunity to update the plan in order to incorporate any of that, including a funding stream. Kevin, can you respond to me about that?
Well, again, same thing I said to Craig. I disagree with you saying we're checking the box. We're not. There are items that were included as part of DEC's comments. They asked us to look at other plans to put in place, whether it's pay as you throw, whether composting. They're being included as part of the plan. So it's not necessarily checking the box. Some of those ideas that Zero Waste Initiative have proposed are in this plan. Not exactly how they spell it out, but they are as part of this plan. So,
okay. Well,
I mean, I guess I have to agree. It's not a check the box. Yes, we are addressing DEC's comments because that's what we have to do. But I still believe that and look, are we going above and beyond? I think others have said it. It's an ambitious goal for what the Zero Waste has. A funding source. I can point out that there isn't a funding source to create a lot of these programs within the plan. DEC is going to come back and say to me, okay, what is your funding source? That's going to be me coming back to all of you saying, what is my funding source? But again, I'm not checking a box. I'm adding information into here, again, similar to some things that Zero Waste has. I don't necessarily say I have all of them in there, but I do have some of them, and that's what I presented in my presentation.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to go through my items and I guess consider them as comments on the plan that we should be incorporating, and I think the plan should be amended prior to going. I understand that a lot of it is a long-term planning process and that you've given us some options with respect to capital items. You know, one of the big things is what are we going to do as a region, like Craig said, with all of our waste, especially if the incinerator is no longer an option for us. So I do think we need a blueprint of things, how we are going to reach the goals. I think the goal of 0 to 4% waste reduction is way too low. We heard today that it's at least 35% of our waste stream is food waste. So I'd like to see us put at least a 35% goal there to divert food waste and yard waste out of our municipal solid waste stream. I think that we should create a planning committee of municipal representatives and citizen volunteers, and that would not cost us anything more than some of our time and our volunteers' time. We should also designate a Warren County Zero Waste Coordinator, similar to what we did with the Climate Smart Coordinator, which doesn't cost us anything. We don't necessarily have to create a new position, but we put that hat on someone, and it can't be you, Kevin. You're already doing a lot. Maybe Todd. I'm going to throw him under the bus. Or we do come up with a revenue stream, get some funding, and create a position for this. I do think that we should have a hauler licensing system. Maybe it doesn't cost anything, but we get people to become licensed in Warren County so that we know who they are and that we can go back to them and collect data from them on their what they're doing with their waste and what their percentages of recycling are and diversion. So I think that's a really good idea that doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money either. I'm open to this idea of the $10 per ton of garbage. I think that if we start putting a dollar figure on that waste, that it will incentivize people to reduce their waste and recycle and do things like repairing their items rather than throwing it away. That will be the very last option, is throw it away because it's going to cost more. And going along with that, trying to encourage our municipalities at the transfer stations to have some sort of reuse or reusable center, like we've talked about, the shed or a pavilion where people can put things and exchange it like your golf club. establishing the county composting facility for our yard waste and our food waste, I think is a really great idea. And if we can get this off the ground as a pilot program, I think it will really be a benefit to our residents, as well as, and more importantly, probably our big food waste generators, like the restaurants that we have all throughout the county, as well as maybe partnering with SUNY Adirondack. I love the idea of a website. That isn't going to cost us a lot of money. We really need to do that. It's already in the plan, I know, and adding the social media aspect, that's great. But also more education. There is grant funding out there from DEC for education. Kevin, you and I have talked about that. I think we need to put in some actual steps that we're going to do in 2021 to go after that grant money, to do an educational program. Maybe not necessarily brochures that get printed by the gazillions, but maybe just flyers at the transfer station, so it's a little less waste. And there are also grant dollars available through the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute for some pieces of equipment, if it's garbage cans and then recycling bins next to it at our, like at the Lake George Village site. I think that's a great idea. We need to show the example, start with us, make sure that we're recycling as much as we can and reducing our waste. And requiring our vendors who are going there as well to do that. So I think those are all really good ideas. And I'd really like to see us update this plan a little bit more, tweak it, make it a little bit stronger, and actually show a blueprint to getting some of these things done, not waiting 10 years or 20 years until it gets changed and not really making a lot of progress in between. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anyone else wish to speak? You know, I also think we need to engage our private sector as well, especially the companies that are already in the hauling business. And especially the companies that are already hauling for the supermarkets and the restaurants via the dumpsters and whatever. And maybe there's a way of, maybe they're already making plans to address some of the state laws and the state regulations. I see, and I've done an exhaustive search, but I see that there are some private companies out there that are providing pickup and composting services out there on the map here in New York State. And I wonder, and perhaps it's rather than open the taxpayer checkbook, maybe there's a way of incentivizing the private sector to provide this as a service to their customers, because I mean, one company in particular, I'm not going to pick one company, but one company in particular is, or two are major players in this area, and also pick up at most of the transfer stations, the MSW waste at the transfer stations as well. So they're already handling, I would guess, the lion's share of the MSW waste throughout the towns. But I would just put that out there also, that I think that opening a dialogue with the private sector, the industry that's already providing these services, may pay some benefits as well.
Ron, can I address some of Claudia's, concerns or comments?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
So Claudia, just, again, as I said, I don't think we're checking a box. A lot of the stuff that you heard in my presentation today, some of that was put in as part of the local solid waste management plan. As I did in my presentation today, I also pointed out the fact that I noticed a lot of errors and discrepancies within the plan. I have a plan that's pretty well marked up right now that we need to make RS Lynch change. I also have a lot of ideas based on some of the zero waste things that I talked about in my presentation today that are going to go to RS Lynch to incorporate into this plan. So I'm not just checking a box. I've really done, I've been working on this for quite some time, because you and I have discussed it. And if I could show you my plan, it's pretty red, and it's all the things that they're going to address. And again, I didn't do it before this meeting, before the public got a chance to see it. I want to give everything to RS Lynch at one time and say, here, now update the plan to what we need. So I just wanted you to make you aware of that.
Right. I mean, this world's changing very quickly. Those of us that run transfer stations know that well, from recyclables to MSW to regulations to whatever. So I think this is more a process than it. I don't really see this as kind of something that has a beginning and an end. And any plan developed today could easily have to be amended tomorrow. So So I think some of the suggestions that have been made in terms of beginning to mold this into more of a process are well-placed recommendations, in my opinion. Anyone else wish to comment? Andrea, I see you've been sitting there so patiently. All right, anyone else wish to comment? We've been at it a while, but this is an important subject, and I think we're going to be spending an awful lot more time on this going forward.
No, and Ron, just the last thing I wanted to add is as I said during my presentation, that DEC is not just going to take my response to summary of comments and the plan and say, okay, we're either going to give you approval or not approval. They could come back with other comments, or based on, as I presented, if there's significant changes to the plan, they're going to come back and say, let's do another 45-day comment period. So this is by no means done. I don't know where we'll end up, once we submit to DEC. I have made a lot of significant changes to the plan, so it may change it enough if they come back and say, do another 45-day comment period.
Claudia.
Thank you, Chairman. Kevin, I appreciate that there might be some changes along the way. My question to you is, while we're going back and forth with DEC, because it did take them years, right, to give us comments the last go around. 7 years to get comments from DEC. So my question is, are you putting together a list for us of things that we can move forward with in the meantime?
Yes, and I'm also including them in the plan. But yes, I'm and again, this to go back to Bennett Driscoll's email yesterday that was sent out. Bennett said, in his email that Superintendent Hagels has informed me that he or his designated alternate would be interested in participating in regularly scheduled meetings to start moving some of these items forward. I mean, the bottom line is, as I said to you, as I said to others, there's a lot of great ideas coming out of the Zero Waste Initiative, but not that say we're going to enact them tomorrow. But we should start looking going forward at being able to do that. I want to do a collaborative effort with them. Again, like you said, coming up with a committee to start moving some of this stuff forward. So yes, I do have things that I think we can start looking at. One of them is the pilot composting program. Yep.
And I did mention to you the other day, and I'll say now, I did put it on the agenda for the Environmental Concerns Committee meeting. I don't have anything narrowly defined as to what we'll talk about, but that's my idea, is that maybe we can serve it as an advisory function to put something forward as a next immediate step here.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. I think given the lateness of the hour, unless there's someone that's, Chair will entertain a motion to end the meeting.
We do actually have a couple more YouTube comments if you want them.
Okay, Don, I'm sorry. I should have gotten back
No
to
problem.
you.
Understood.
Go right ahead.
Tracy Frisch posted exactly most waste goes through private haulers, which is why bringing the haulers under the oversight of the county is so incredibly important. R.S. Lynch has shown no awareness of model programs and policies in the area of reuse, recycling, or organics diversion. It is really important to incorporate some examples into the plan. From Diane Collins, thanks, Kevin, for your clear efforts. We're ready for a follow-up Zoom meeting, Zero Waste Committee members. And that's it.
Great. I like that. And on a positive note, that's always good, right? How about a motion to adjourn?
So
Move to adjourn with a big thank you to Kevin and Todd for all the work they've done on this.
Thank you, Craig. Well deserved. I agree. Mr. Bruno, was that a second?
Yes.
A second to adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for your patience today. I think it was a worthwhile 2 hours.
Ron, I won't talk that much again.
Oh, well done, Kevin. Well done.
That much.
Thank
All
you.
in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye. Done.
Opposed? We are adjourned, everyone. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Kevin.